everyone, welcome back to Reveal and Heal podcast. I am Ryan.
And I am Kailisha.
Today in this podcast, we are going to be discussing parenting. Co-parenting, parenting on its own, just, all the ish that comes along with having children.
Ryan, we discussed this in our last podcast. She is newly separated, so she is doing the co-parenting thing. And I am married, but I do feel like my husband and I also co-parent because he is away 90% of the time.
Well, let's get this straight. Any person who has a child with another person, they are co-parenting. Whether you are in a relationship or not, you are co-parenting with that person because you guys have to parent those children together.
So regardless, we're both co-parents.
Exactly. I don't want anyone to confuse that because co-parenting is a joint effort. And it's both your kids, so you have to parent together, married or not.
Oh, okay. Learned something new.
Well, because I feel like co-parenting is always, regarded for people who
that are separated
or not together. But, if you're in a marriage and you're both raising your children, you're still co-parenting.
Yeah, that's the only way
another.
I've ever heard it referenced in a sentence is we're co-parenting for people that are not together.
Mm-hmm. No. I always had to, I guess this one thing that I've learned or tried to talk about is, really put in the mind, because in my marriage, I did as most women do, majority of the child rearing, raising, activities, planning, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But trying to get my ex more hands-on with the kids and trying to book things or plan things or, one thing I've noticed, if men do something, they need a pat on their back for doing it. I remember my ex, he had taken the kids to swimming lessons one day. And then, it's the end of the class, so you can sign them up for the next set for whatever level that they need to. So he comes home, and he was so proud of himself. He's like, well, I went there, and they finished, so I knew what levels they were in. So I just went out and registered right then and there. So we didn't have to do it later. And I'm like,
here's a cookie.
Great, exactly. Congratulations, good job. Because you didn't do it ever. It was
because you didn't ask.
Okay, yes. And part of those things, I did not ask, but I'm very much a person where I feel like you know what needs to be done. You know what I do. How are they going to get signed up for these things anyways?
Exactly.
I should not have to ask you to do these things. You should just do them. No different than the dishes. I shouldn't have to ask you to do this. You should just be like, oh, they need to be done, and go do them. That's where it comes into, am I parenting my spouse as well as my children? Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to be your mama. Therefore, you can relate to really parenting solo with not having Wes around all the time. And so you're living the same life I am half the time because you're like, well, he's not around. Everything falls on me when he's not around, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it can be a lot. But he seems like he helps out when he is in town.
Yes.
When he does with the kids.
He's very hands-on.
But you're also you delegate, I feel like, a lot in the sense where, those boundaries are there. When you're in town, this is what is expected of you in regards of helping out. In
the yeah. As soon as he told me he was here when we first moved back to BC, and I'm like, oh, perfect, you're here, so you're taking the girls to school, or are you picking them up tomorrow? Because you're not leaving everything on me. And he's like, oh, well, I was going to go to the branch, but I guess you guessed correct. You will be doing one of two things that need to be done. Better yet, you can even help them pack up their lunches the night before.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Getting help, I guess, when you
can.
Yeah,
no. Everything has been on me for so many years, and now I know that if I don't speak up, it's not going to get done, and I'm not going to get the help I would like. So I make sure I am very vocal, and I speak up, and I say what I'm feeling, because if not, I'm going to turn it internally, and I'm going to be an asshole to everybody. I'm trying to do the best I can, not knowing what I'm expecting of him. So we had, years ago, suggested if I need help, I need to speak up, because if I don't, he's going to think everything is A-okay.
So me and my ex, we separated for a couple of years, and then we tried to reconcile. Shit didn't go well. But here we are now, separated again. I forgot all the red flags. Anywho, that's how it was then. It was that I then went into it with a different mindset and tried to set boundaries or tried to state
The second time,
what I expected, what I needed, where I'm at, And then it became that I'm very bossy. That I'm very, like... Demanding. Like, well, if, you know, I don't ask you to try to go mow the lawn or something like that, or, you know, take the garbage out, I just feel like that's, like, my job. Okay, well, first off, you take the garbage out once every 2 weeks. That's when it comes. In the winter, there is no lawn to be mowed. Maybe snow, but normally just rain where we are. Okay, but yeah, I'm doing dishes every day because they need to be done. Laundry every day, or not every week because it needs to be done. Like, these are things that are on a consistent basis. Now, flip side though, because now I'm taking out the garbage because you leave for work too early in the morning, so now I'm doing one of your jobs, and I can get out there and mow the lawn. I do get out there and shovel the snow.
Yeah.
So therefore, where is that balance coming from? Right? So for me, it's like, yeah, you know, I try to keep these boundaries, but then if you're not going to respect them, no, because now I'm trying to come into this in a different mindset, a different awareness, in a healthier aspect, but you're not in the same mindset or the same growth that I've had or that I'm coming into it
But
with.
do you think he probably got like, oh, well, you're doing it, so I'm just going to leave it alone and let you handle what you're going to handle?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, well, I'm just not going to do it the way you want it to be done. And I will admit, in many times we'd be going, like, and doing things, I will take my ownership in the sense where he would be like, loosely try to do something, you know, be like, oh, I'll do this, kids, da-da-da. But it was almost like we were together, but then he would try to take the kids out on the weekends as if we were still separated, and sticking to his, like, weekend schedule of, like, I'll take them out, do something on the weekend so you can have your weekend to yourself. But I'm like, well, then now you're missing the whole point of this, because then I might as well just still be on my own, because I'm still doing everything else. Actually, I have more work now, because now I'm cleaning up after you. I'm cleaning after the dog again. I'm walking the dog I'm feeding the dog. Like, I'm doing all these things that I never had to do before. So now it's like, that doesn't really work at all. So the parenting didn't change. He kept the separated parenting mentality coming into it. And I was like, that's not how this can work. You know what? I think it's that aspect, though, of, like, if you've been with someone for so long, even when there's red flags, you hope that
they'll change.
In those couple of years of, like, being separated, that, you know, you've worked on yourself, you're trying to do therapy, you're trying to move different, that's what they're doing and that's what they did, you know, and then when you're still apart, you're hearing what they're telling you and the changes that they're saying they're making, and then you're believing it, and you're, like, rose-colored glasses, like, oh, okay, do I have an opportunity to put my family back together? Do I have an opportunity to, like, you know, rebuild this and come back from this in, like, a different mindset, because we were both here for it. And then, you know, literally moving in within a month of moving back, those rose-colored glasses were off, and I was like, I put myself back in this fucking cage. Like, I put myself back in this cage. What did I do?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, well, now, shit, I'm here, and I don't want to
disrupt
it
again.
but, like, you know, it's just like, shit. I remember going in that, I moved so differently, too, with that, trying to be more vocal parenting, and trying to say, like, hey, I just need help with this. With the kids, I had a very good routine, chores, schedule, like, what was expected, everything, very good. And then, you know, Dad comes in the picture, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but he's like, well, what was your schedule? Okay, well, I'll just kind of go with that. But, like, our schedule didn't fit him in it because he wasn't there. So now he feels out of place because he's trying to stick to a schedule that didn't include him. Do you feel like when Wes comes in and you guys are gone, like, you get into a groove with the girls and your own schedule and your own routines, and then he comes in and it's sort of, like, disrupted a bit?
I used to feel like that just because when it was just me with the girls, they knew what the expectation was. You're going to come home from school, you're going to take your lunch out of your bag, you're going to wash all your dishes, you're going to get yourself ready for the morning. On Wednesdays and Saturdays, you have these chores to do.
Right.
On Fridays and Sundays, you have these chores to do. But then I found when he was around, he started because he was missing that those days with him and that time with him, they'd be like, "Oh, Dad, can you help me clean my bathroom?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." And he would get up and go do it, and I was like, "Sit your behind down. I told them to do it, not you to help them." And he's like, "Well, I'm just trying to help." Even the other day, we're moving out to the Airbnb, coming to the new house, and I told Natalia, "Make sure your room is clean." Sure enough, her room was not clean, and I went in one of the drawers because the expectation of the Airbnb is that you clean out all your garbage when you leave. I open up one of the drawers and it's full of like garbage from school supplies, and I was like, "Get in there and go clean up that mess." What does she do? "Dad, can you go do it?" And he starts walking, and I was like, "You better get your behind in the corner now. Go sit down somewhere." Because how are these kids gonna learn to do anything if you're always there to pick up after them? They're not. And that's where I think it comes from. Like, I'm the disciplinarian at home for sure. My kids know that. Like, right now they're both grounded because they know I have an expectation. If you don't fulfill that expectation, I give them chances. It's not like I'm a hard ass where it's like, "Oh, you messed up." No. I always tell them, like, this is why I'm disappointed in you. This is what you did not do.
So that's one thing that is a struggle between their dad and I, because when they're at their dad's house, he can't be bothered to fight with them, argue with them, or be that stern parent. I think it's maybe because he only has them on the weekends. It's like, oh, well, like,
yeah,
I
need to be the fun guy.
the Disneyland dad, right? So it's like, no. And then he complains to me about that they don't listen to them. I'm like, well, that's not my problem. Because at home, here, they know. I ask them to do it. That is what I expect of them. And there's consequences for what it is if they don't do what they're asked to do.
Exactly.
Like, if I'm not, their bedroom is not my bedroom. I'm not cleaning up their bedroom. You can't be bothered to tell them to clean up their room and figure it out, so you go clean their room. The joke's on you.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that because I'm not going to their house when they're adults and cleaning their house because they're not doing it. It starts now. Like, simple. We were talking about masculine and feminine energy on the last episode. So, in aligning with your parenting, now, does that imbalance of masculine and feminine energy affect your parenting with one another? Like how you guys parent as a whole? Because I know it's going to be different now with my ex and I not together. We parent separately, but remain in communication for things of the kids, whether it be medical or school or etc. But when you're living with someone, that balance is very different. So do you feel like you guys butt heads often, being like both kind of like in control, or like, for example, you're here with them all the time, right? So for you, you're like, well, when I say this, it goes, this, I'm the head here, like, but then when he comes in and undermines maybe what you say or says something completely different, you're like, no, that's not how it works. Like, is there conversations around that saying like, you know, like, this is how it is when you're not here. So like, I would appreciate that you follow this sort of blueprint, or, you know.
I think in the beginning it was because, so Natalia started getting like a really bad attitude, and he'd always be like, "Oh, well, she's just like growing," and like it was this excuse all the time. And even I remember one time, like, my mother-in-law came and Natalia was again acting up, and my mother-in-law was like, "Well, yeah, but she's a really good kid," like, and I'm like, yeah, but you guys are just making excuses for this behavior, and it's 100% not okay. So I started getting in fights with Natalia all the time because I would want her phone, her device, and I'm like, okay, you're grounded. And she wouldn't want to give it up, and like, it was just like this, it would go from like 0 to 100 really quickly because I'm a confrontational kind of person. So if you're not going to give me what I'm asking you to give me, and I'm paying for it, we're going to have problems. You're only 13. You need to sit your little behind down.
Devices.
Yes.
The new parents' kryptonite.
So what I started doing, because I was having this conversation with one of Natalia's mom's friends, and I had explained like this whole situation. She's like, you know what? I don't even fight with her anymore. I just disable the apps. She's like, it makes a huge. She can't do anything but call me. I change it, so only thing she can do is call me. She doesn't like that, so she's not going to use her phone. So right now, Natalia's phone is, and I had a text last night, I'm like, I'm so sick and tired. I'm like, I don't even know what to do anymore. with this attitude for no reason towards everyone. It's not even just me. It's like me, her little sister, her dad.
Don't you?
No, I can't relate though, because I knew then when my dad said, shut up and get in your room, I was going to shut up and get in my room. I wasn't going to fight back. I fought back once and ended up on the floor.
I fought back once and ended up on the East Coast.
I knew, yes. I think, like, of course, we didn't have devices and stuff, so I would push my limits for sure. But I think, too, I would always ask to stay out because I wanted to escape from
home life,
that toxic environment I was in, right? So I'd be like, oh, I'm going to go out. And then, of course, when I was out, I was doing things I should not have been doing.
like all teenagers.
Yeah. But that's the thing, too, is, like, I remember even one time Wes's mom was like, you want to make sure your kids have the house that your kids want to always hang at, because then you know where they are. So that's why I'm like, okay, you guys can come here, because I don't want them hanging out with the other.
I tried that, but I just don't like other people's children. I tried that. I don't like other people's children like that I want them around all the time.
No, when they're little,
like
though,
my
it's different.
space.
But when they, like, they're a teen and stuff, you're like, no, I want to make sure you're
I guess you're more
inside.
self-sufficient, too.
Yeah, and I want to make sure, like, that you guys know if you guys leave that house, the alarm is going to go off. Then I'm going to get up.
Then I'm going to know.
Everyone's parents are going to be called, and it's not going to be pretty. Like, coming back to the question, in the beginning it was because, yes, Wes and I are both very masculine, but when it comes to his kids, he's very feminine. So he is the man and he's the head honcho at work, but when he comes here and he gets around those girls, it's just like, it's like they're kittens, to be honest. He's just like, oh, I just love them so much. Oh, can they sleep with us? Oh, Talia. And he's just like this little girl. And I'm like, man up. Like,
but you know what? I think that also, in all due respect to us, like, he grew up mainly with his mom and his sisters, and he is the baby.
That's
So,
what it is, too.
He's got all these women around him, and him being the baby that he's probably been doted on. And
For sure.
So, is gentle parenting a thing? Like, I don't know.
Honestly,
I hear all this soft parenting. And
I've tried it. That's not for us. If gentle parenting works for you in your household, kudos to you. Round of applause. It does not work over here. Because Wes tries that's how he parents. Sometimes now, like, he's starting to get mad, and I'm like, it's about damn time. Shit.
Gentle parenting is not for the weak. Like, the amount, I feel, of self-control and, like, discipline comes with soft, gentle parenting. Like, I did not grow up with no such thing as gentle parenting. That was not a thing when I was a child. So for me, when I see them and I'm like, I understand talking to children about your emotions and your feelings and expressing this stuff, because it's teaching them these great, like, internal skills at a young age. And that's great. However, I feel like some of these children, you see them and I'm like, they were probably gentle parented and they're wreaking havoc.
So when I think of gentle parenting, I think of, these are the three things that come to my mind. So there was Simone's teacher had sent home like get to know your kids, whatever.
Oh yeah, the thing they do every year.
And it's like, what's one thing your child like lacks in? And Wes was like, she doesn't like when she doesn't mind being told that she did something wrong, but she doesn't like to be told that she did something wrong in front of like a classroom setting. That's where that gentle parenting thing comes from, and I'm like, yeah, but if she's in a workplace in 20 years, do you think her boss is going to pull her aside and say, Simone, yeah, no, sorry, we don't do that here. But two, when I think about gentle parenting and I see these parents trying to implement it into how they parent, I think about when, let's say you're getting picked on at school, and you keep getting picked, and then finally it's like you get punched in the face. Okay, at which point does the person stick up for themselves, right?
That's the thing. I feel like parents' favorite saying growing up, I brought you into this world and I can take you out. And you know what? I feel like your children should have a healthy level of fear of you.
Yes.
Because I do not need to spank my children. My children are too old to be spanked. But they know if you get that look, you better smarten up and listen. Like,
But
It's a
you know
thing.
what, though? This is the third thing to come to my mind, though, about gentle parenting. You didn't grow up down home, whereas I did. And I grew up in church. So you have that community. If I ever said something out of line to my mom at church, even if it was a little bit, one of them old timers going to be like, oh, no, you don't talk to your mom like that. Get over here right now. Nope, you don't do that. And then you'd be like, oh, you would learn, right? Like, if my mom's not telling me not to talk to her this way, how the hell am I going to know?
Well, that's why they say community. It's like
Exactly,
you're raised by
but
community.
now, like, I don't have that community here. I've been solo, like, we've been away from family for years. So I haven't had any family be like, oh no, except for you, now that you're back. Like the other day when you checked Natalia, you're like, we do not talk to your mom like that. And when she asks you to do something, you're going to help. And she was like, oh, because it's only been like Wes, it's like, oh, it's okay, I'll do it.
No. My kids don't do it. I'm sorry, my nieces aren't going to do it. This is the thing.
Exactly.
It's like, and no, I did not grow up down home, but my mom is not for the weak. My
No.
mama don't play. My mama is straight up.
Growing
like,
up black over there and over here. So in how we deal with communication is I'm very much like, you know what it is when I was growing up, I didn't feel like I never had a say. I could never say like, I'm unhappy or can I do this? And I remember even anytime I tried to say, I don't like how this
You'd be shut down.
is, I would be shut down immediately. Like you're little, you don't, but I don't do that to my kids. So what I'll do is if they get in trouble, sometimes I'll have a family meeting and I'm like, okay, everyone just say how you're feeling. It's been very chaotic here. We're fighting a lot. Let's talk about, okay, well, then they have to learn like if I'm not happy and I'm going to fight with their dad, if their dad's not happy, and then it's going to trickle down onto everybody because he's going to be a jerk. He's not going to be the fun dad because you're not doing this, you're not doing that. But he knows now, because at one point he was always taking the kid sides, right?
Right.
Oh, well, I don't want anyone to fight. They're kids.
Mm-hmm. You need to be that united front together.
If I can't be that united front with you, then we need to pack this shit up because I refuse to be in a relationship with anybody and not be heard because I've seen my mom do that for so many years. And two, I was like, it's just going to make things worse between you and I because anytime I have a problem with Natalia or Simone, if they're going to come to you and be like, and if you're going to go there and talk shit about me, you know what I mean? Like, that ain't good.
Yeah.
You ain't talking like crazy shit, but you're still talking like
well, like your child gossiping and trying to be all up
your
in
mom
that.
can be so difficult. No, shut up.
That's the one thing that I will say that the girl's dad and I are pretty good at in that sense is like even if we have our own ish in a relationship aspect and we are not the best at when it comes to communicating regarding the kids, even now separated, like if they lose electronics at the house, my place, I will tell them they don't get them back till this date, and this is why it stays over there too. It is not like so they know. Oh, I can just go to dad's house in like a couple days, and it's just going to be like, oh, no problem. Like, no, that punishment follows wherever you go. Like, kids try all the time. Well, dad said this, or mom said this, and aren't we texting each other, calling each other, and being like, well, so-and-so, I never said that. So, where are we at? Squash all that stuff now. Yeah. There is no playing us off one another. That's not how this is going to go.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think it's really important at a young age to make your kids understand that. No. And that's, too, why Wes says to the girls now, he's like, I remember like one time Natalia sits in the front seat and Wes was like, no, Natalia, get in the back. And he's like, no, mom can sit in the back. And I was like, I can sit in the back? How about this? I'm not going. And then she was like, oh, okay, great, you're not going. And Wes was like, no, if she's not going, you're not going. I'm choosing her over you, so
smart man.
You're going to stay home and I'm going to take your mama. So bye.
Don't show nothing. Don't say nothing.
And then what happens when we do that? We're going to end up in rehab.
You're dealing from all these
20 years later because you're dealing with all these past traumas that you were never allowed to express.
It's a thing. It's honestly, and I think that even with my own kids, I have them in therapy now because I want them to have those emotional skills. And for now, even for me, when it comes to communicating, so then, it's one of those things that now I was very much, I will admit, like when the kids were little, I parented the way I only seen parent, like as growing up, like the only way I knew how.
Yep.
I had a father who, when I did see him, shut me down, was very emotionally abusive in that respect, and very domineering, right? And it made me definitely go in my shell and be more meek and not want to say what I had to say. And then for my mom, it definitely was like, my mom's just a hard ass. Like, can be fun, but she's a hard ass.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you come from, like, my ex's side, and he grew up very much, you know, 4 boys, they're all working every time. They never wanted to be home because they were put to work, and it was like, you get yelled at or you get smacked upside the head or something. Like, you know, those were the 80s. So now and I started off that way, and I found Brooke getting really meek. And I was like, no, because you're never going to, like, that spark's starting to go away, and you're never going to stand up for yourself. You're never going to speak up for yourself. That her little sister was able to bully her, and she would do nothing about it but cry. And it was like, no, you need to stand up for yourself, and you need to find your voice.
Yeah.
So do not let this little child that's 2 years younger than you bully you. Yeah, stand up for yourself. Because I don't want to hurt her. You're not going to hurt her, but you need to teach her that she can't do that. And she finally did, and she's like, oh, okay. Now she backs off, right? And the dynamic's different, but in turn, as a parent, I had to recognize that and then start to move differently. And so now I communicate very much. It's more like a place of love first, of like, okay, take a few minutes to breathe. Do you need a hug? Do we need to just like have a hug and just decompress? And then what's going on? Talk to me. Remaining calm myself and removing myself and putting myself in a mommy timeout if I need to, if I'm too heated, has been really good to like just remove yourself, come back, and then, okay, let's talk about this. We need to communicate
on a calm level.
Yeah, on a calm level. So we can like, you be heard, I can be heard, and let's work this out and figure out a consequence that you feel is fair, I feel is fair, and we know how to move moving forward, right? Well, action-packed episode here. Again, we have divots and roadblocks, but we all come back to parenting, and that's, at the end of the day, what this episode was about. And I think getting into parenting of how we were parented, as well as, like, how we parent our kids, and how parenting can affect us is big, right? I think it's never a dull moment.
Yeah.
Always ever-changing and evolving. Your parenting skills and toolbox needs to grow with you and as your kids age. I know you're in the teen years now, so I'm just...
Pray for me.
I'm praying, but I'm looking and I'm like, let me get all these tips, let me look.
No, but it's funny though, because out of my close friends, I'm the only one that has a daughter that's this age. So anytime I'm like expressing or venting to a friend, they're like, oh, well, I'm going to note this for next. For when I'm doing
right?
it,
You're a guinea pig.
And I'm like, this is not the kind of advice I need. And then my best friend she has 2 boys that are like in their close to 20 now, but they're older. So I just feel too like with me because yes, I was a young mom. I had Natalia when I was 23, turning 24. I grew up with Natalia.
Oh, 100%.
And I also parent out of fear because I just been through so much. And I was really unteachable growing up. And I get, like, I can't hold her hand. I can't make her do it, change. I can't change anything, right? Like, she's going to do whatever she wants to do.
Yeah.
However, if I can teach her now, which is things that I didn't learn until I was in my 30s, I just feel like, you know what I mean? Like, I've done all I can do. I've taught you. And then, like, it's funny because she'll go against me and not listen or do something like that. And she'll be like, yeah, I should have just listened. I'm like, oh, man, you still ain't learning. Like, at the end of the day, I know I'm a fun parent. I know we're friends. But at the end of the day, I am your mother. Like,
First
you know what I mean?
foremost,
Like,
before I'm your friend.
you need to respect me. And that's number one. Like, I always want her to grow up and want to talk to me. So I always welcome, like, even if we fight, like, Mom, you need a hug. I love you. But you can't talk to me like that. You can't do this. You can't treat people like that. Because at the end of the day, I always have your back. Anytime you need me, I'm there. I know from experience, once you start to lose your parents' trust and your family's trust, it's harder to gain it back, right? So I just want them to know that at a young age, like, we're always here. And that's too why I would have like this open door. Like, you could tell us about like anything you're going through. And like, even it's funny, like her and all her friends were in here last night and they're just talking to us about, oh yeah, like we play volleyball, and like, who do you have a crush on? And I'm like, oh my god, I don't like him anymore. And I'm just like, oh, well, that's kind of cool because she obviously feels open enough. That's a conversation I would have never had with either one of my parents growing up about.
Really, it's funny because never with my dad would I ever, but I had conversations like that with my mom growing up, and that's how me and my kids move now. We have conversations about these kinds of things that like they will never go to their dad about with certain things, but they know they will always come to me. And maybe it's just because like I'm a female, they're a female with certain things, but like half the time they will open up to me tenfold compared to their dad in so many ways.
Yeah, no, I just learned to always like suppress everything.
Oh, trust me.
Yeah,
I suppress everything, but that I feel like with my mom, one thing growing up as a teenager, you know, you go to parties, you want to drink, you want to do whatever.
No.
One thing my mom always said was like, if you need me, if you or your friends ever need me and they can't call their parents, you call me and I will get you wherever you are, no matter what. And she has proven to do that time and time again, even for us. So like she's
a road dog. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you guys in our next podcast.
Bye, pod.
I've been all in my phone, I got options, and I don't wanna tell you to drop it, but I don't wanna